So what is the metaverse? What does it look like? Will our lives change when the metaverse is here? I'm Ken Rutkowski. I get to hang out with this incredible panel of distinguished speakers, and we're going to talk about what the metaverse is, why it's important, and what kind of fun can we have when it's here. So Natalie, you have been spending a lot of time on this set and also on stage. You've talked about crypto, blockchain. How much metaverse conversation have you had?
Clearly not enough. I mean, we're in the metaverse on this set. This is a beautiful set that's making me feel like I'm in a different dimension, but I really want to learn more about it because we've heard, the obvious big name is Facebook changing its name to Meta, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of metaverses, right? So what are they going to look like? Because I imagine that if I have kids, they're going to just be playing in this make-believe world.
I kind of hate the idea. I'm just going to say maybe I'm an old timer here. Like they have the Burning Man metaverse or Burning Man. I'd rather go to Burning Man than the Burning Man metaverse. Vesa, you're shaking your head yes. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, but your whole world is based upon the metaverse because NFTs are going to be in the metaverse, so you have to embrace it and love it.
Well, there's parts to it. I mean, you could. The other side, what you could say is that. So what are we doing with the metaverse? Is then we're building the matrix essentially, but then at the same time, if you think of with the innovation of NFTs, what you can do is you can have digital land ownership. All the different kinds of digital products can become tradable goods, therefore springing new economies. And where that gets really interesting is not with Meta, because I don't think Mark Zuckerberg is going to give the land ownership rights and all this, what the metaverse is really about, to those people participating. But what is going to happen is that many places in the world, people are going to be able to skip the Industrial Revolution. And even in remote places in Africa, you will have mobile phones. Therefore, you can have a Bitcoin wallet on your mobile phone. So the banking is no longer an issue.
You're getting very detailed. I just want to know, would you have fun in it?
Yeah, of course. I enjoy generating it. But let me finish, because ultimately we have 3.5 billion people in the world without a bank account. And now all of these digital services are coming on board, and all of a sudden those people who wouldn't normally have access to the financial services get to generate new economies.
Wait,
what does that look like?
I got to stop you there. Because you just said 3.5 billion people. That means they have to have devices and applications and tools, and they normally can't even afford the proper phones to be part of the banking space. So I think that there's a huge market that will not be able to be part of this first iteration of the metaverse because of the cost. They're not going to be able to have some type of VR headset. I'm not sure, David, do you see what I'm saying?
I do, and I would say that metaverse as a term kind of makes me want to throw up. Because it's really just a catch-all for anything that feels like it's immersive. And so the frequency of immersion in my mind, if you think about the unbanked economies or people that they still probably play games. Right. And their idea of playing game is an example of being in a place that's immersive. And they're already participating in it. There's not a massive reveal that's going to happen. It says, holy shit, we spent $40 billion in the metaverse, and suddenly it's here. It's already here in different capacities. So I just think we need to calm down and enjoy it. And enjoy these experiences, visceral or otherwise. The ability to touch somebody and feel the visceralness of that, if I can have that frequency in the psychology of my brain, then I'm participating in it. If I don't, if those senses aren't experienced, then something's going to be missed. So take, for example, VR, and I don't want to suck the air out of this, but let me just say, your question about fun is really simple to me. If I have immersive experience and something is missing, then I'm actually not that immersed. For example, VR. You're watching this incredible experience, you hear this ding, 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 the piano is back there, awesome, awesome. Suddenly Beck lights a cigarette, draws on the cigarette, I turn around, and this is one of my first VR experiences, and I'm watching him play this piano, but I can't smell the cigarette. So I'm now distracted from the fact that I can't smell that cigarette. So I'm no longer immersed. That's the fundamental issue to me, is it has to be this multi-experience.
It has to be fully sensatory immerse. It doesn't exist yet.
No, and I mean, I agree with you. I grew up wanting to, play outside and experience real concerts in person. I mean, this is what I still value and appreciate. I know that, a lot of kids grow up gaming, and so they are used to this sort of digital world with digital currencies and having value and all that. But the crazy thing I heard at this conference, at Blockchain World, where I was like, okay, I could get behind this, is someone told me that in the metaverse, you could actually have your favorite celebrity read a bedtime story to your kids, teach them their school lessons. They don't need to be in school with some random second grade teacher. They could have Will Smith, behind there teaching them algebra, and that maybe makes them more engaged, which I think is super interesting. I would love for my favorite celebrity to read me a bedtime story.
Read you, right? Could be creepy too, right?
Totally.
So we look at this whole metaverse. I like what you just said. We've been doing this a long time.
Right.
The first game that had that was something called Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of the Lounge Lizards. You probably don't even know what that is.
How do you
do know what it
remember
is,
that?
I do.
right? And what it was a game to where it took you through these different types of 8-bit worlds, and you had fun. And look what we've done. 8-bit has been the metaverse for the last, 2-3 decades?
Yeah.
Just 8-bit. So it doesn't require incredible graphics. It has to have real imagination. So you're Mr. Imagination. You actually probably visualize a metaverse all the time, don't you?
Yeah, and paint is technology. It's just very old technology. We don't consider it technology, but it's one of these. So what is an original? And I would say Salvador Dali was someone who had a metaverse inside of his paintings, and he made something visible to at least the Western world, and probably the whole world, on how to make the dreamscapes that we've all sort of seen throughout history. And all of a sudden, this guy sort of utilizes this technology in order for us to be able to immerse into what is already on the inside of us. And that was the real kind of innovation, and what is valuable about art is that what I find fascinating is that sometimes you see what is bubbling to the surface, what's about to happen, and someone just manifests it. Either it's a film like The Matrix, or then it's a Dali painting, or it's music, or whatever it is. It brings that thing that is all inside of us already for us to experience it together.
Vesa, when you think, when you're talking about those immersive dreamscapes, firstly, I thought the way that Salvador Dali came up with ideas was incredible, because he was a napper, and he would sleep and rest with a spoon in his hand, and he would drop the spoon and he'd wake himself up and he'd see these visions. When you're looking at, because your work is beautiful and trippy, so when you're thinking of expressing work through the new mediums, do you, because you've experienced things in a 3D scape, do you visualize in a 3D scape, or is that part of the process of the discovery before its inception? Does it make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah. No, totally. I think it's all. We were talking about this with Ken yesterday when we had a chat, and I think why I'm fascinated by spiritual concepts or going to the foundations of religion and all that kind of stuff is that all of them have a creation story. And so first there was nothing, then there's everything, and this kind of a thing. And the way that I kind of learned how to look at things is that we're often feeling like we're separate from the world. We don't feel like there's animals, there's plants, there's whatever, and we just sort of pop up and we're disassociated from everything. And the job of an artist, I think, is to kind of immerse themselves fully into creation. The world is completely alive all the time. We're fully immersed in a metaverse all the time, like in that kind of a way. And it's the job of all of us to kind of remove the layers of trauma or disconnection or whatever from out the way for us to feel that we're in creation all the time. And then after that, it's all about just utilizing different kinds of tools.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I totally get it.
I'm watching the three of you. This background's moving around. I'm just curious, there's an audience we have here. Audience, is the background a distraction or an enhancement? If you think it's a distraction, raise your hand. Audience. If you think it adds to this, raise your hand. Interesting. Wow, so they all feel it adds. To me, it's a distraction. You've been here all week.
Yeah.
It is a distraction, right?
Well, yeah, and being on camera, I've always, little things are distractions, right? Like a car could be going by behind you, and the audience could see that as a distraction. So it's interesting that maybe shapes and sort of this world that we're placing this set in is additive in some way. But I have a question, because I truly think that being young, one of the best things about it is imagination. Does this help imagination or actually take over for your imagination and create it for you?
Well, it sounds like for you, you need it for imagination.
I'm sure.
That's all he is. He's an imagination right now. He's an imaginary character in life.
I feel like it strips us of imagination. I mean, we
Do you? Why?
Because I feel like if you're immersing in this world, you're in someone else's imagination as opposed to dreaming up things on your own.
You don't think it could be an extension?
Well, that's share how.
Okay. Any technology that gains momentum, the very first industry that adopts it is the porn industry. The first to go into it, okay? And any industry, anything. When it was e-commerce, they were right there. When it was high video, high 8, high def, 8K, I mean, it's the porn industry. They literally test this stuff out, right? They've been very, very apprehensive of this, which is interesting. Because if they're not jumping into it, they probably don't feel it's that far along yet. They haven't done well. I've interviewed people from a bunch of the porn industry,
Really?
and they have said that the VR headsets are uncomfortable. They said you can't maintain a comfort environment. Movie industry said the same thing. I'm not sure if have you tried Oculus? You can only have it up there maybe an hour.
Yeah, it has a weight issue.
At the most. So I think right now the devices make it very irritating after a while.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a limitation on that. So it's hard to imagine when you have something that's, you start to notice that it's on you going, this doesn't feel good. And I think it detracts from the sensations that you want. Do you agree? Or?
Well, there are technologies being built outside of Oculus, as just one example, but many of the headset developments, weight is one issue. Obviously, the orientation is another issue, but the real issue is the biometric. So if you can't tell if you're laughing or I'm crying, then the content's always going to stay linear. So where I see that content will become much more immersive and fun and help imagination is if you're able to read those emotions. If I have to premeditate your emotion by smile and frown,
sure.
that's still linear.
Yep.
But when you have this multiverse, if we want to be, I'm the buzzword king, so I'm down for that. But if we think about these multiverse experiences, the challenge with that is developing that content and actually making sure that you can choose your own adventure in that. That's where imagination, I think, becomes far wider than where we are today, but the technology is way behind.
So where Spielberg took us in Ready Player One is where we want to be.
Potentially.
Right?
And what's interesting about that is if you look at things like, the armed forces have been experimenting with these things for a long time, and it's close. So there's a really good utility for it. But when fun gets folded into it, today we immediately think of games.
Right away.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be something else. But I also think that, when we think about these immersive experiences, it doesn't always have to relate to headset. It could just relate to sound. And so I think we're limiting the experience to the visual cortex, that part of your brain, and not the other senses, which could make it a really interesting play.
I agree with you, because if you look at Oculus, they sold 2.5 million headsets.
Right.
You look at Apple, they sold 280 million earpods.
Right.
And they have sound spatial recognition, so you move your head, you hear it. So that is some type of augmented reality.
Yeah.
Do we agree?
Assisted reality, for sure.
Assisted. So Apple theoretically is way ahead of the game. They're just going after a different sense. So when they bring out their glasses, which should be happening soon, those are AR, they're probably going to be ahead of where Oculus is. And they definitely have a better name. People gravitate towards an Apple product. So I'm sitting here going, all right, so what would I use it for? What would you use it for? You love the crypto space. You would probably use it to maybe, instead of having Zoom, you would put glasses on and automatically now you're sitting next to Vesa, who's in Helsinki.
Yeah.
You would want it to enhance your career more than anything, probably more than gameplay, wouldn't you?
Right, yeah. I mean, if you could just have a virtual set just like this, where you didn't have to necessarily be in the same place as someone, but it was more interesting than two-dimensional Zoom, that would be great. That would, I think, be really interesting. Of course, I'd be interested in seeing different parts of the world. Like, you can put on an Oculus and transport yourself somewhere and have that sort of IMAX-like experience where you're flying or something. That would be fun. But I guess, I'm totally okay with people using this for recreation and for, short bursts of imaginative play. What I worry about is that idea that as things get more automated, and you don't need humans anymore. We're basically, we need to be in the metaverse because there's nothing else for us to do, right? Like, I don't know what that movie is. It's animated. Maybe it's WALL-E, where they're in that spaceship, right? And they're just all the...
That was WALL-E.
The fat people that are just drinking something, and they put on the glasses, and they're just in another planet, and they're just circling around the universe, and there's no purpose to their lives except for where they exist digitally. And it's just like, is that where we're going?
Well, what about this a little bit? Because if you think of oil portraiture, it used to be so that someone just gets your essence.
By the
and
way,
then
we
they
do not
paint
sound
the
like we're
picture.
happy about the metaverse at all. You know,
No,
we're supposed to
I'm
have
getting
fun
to
in the
that.
metaverse.
I'm getting to that.
Okay, let's do it.
So then what I really started doing is that I started body painting people and then photographing the whole process, and what I thought was about opening up a space where that person could be their best selves, to kind of make that into a digital realm and evolve the whole idea of how to capture someone's essence. Now, what I think is coming next is artificially assisted, like AI coming into that picture. Let's say you put on the goggles and there's an app that kind of goes into your whole being. Psychedelic means to reveal the soul. So what if there was a metaverse kind of thing that allows you to see and reveal your soul to you in a different kind of way, and you become an artistic expression? Because even if I educated 100,000 people to do the art in the way that I do, I still don't scale enough. But I would love for people to get these sort of immersive, connected to themselves personally artistic experiences that then could turn into many other things. But essentially, it would be like an assisted, creative, your best selves. It could show you where your blocks are in order for you to become a more creative person.
Would that be part of your career? Like Natalie would use it for her career. Are you using it for your career?
Yeah, why not?
No, I'm just, because we're not talking about gameplay right now. We're talking about occupation. Would you do the same thing, or would you use it for escapism?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, escapism is really interesting that you've locked onto that, because if it's an immersive experience, it feels more surreal than real, and you have the ability to pull out of that experience, then you can take it away. Whatever that is, pull it out, take it off, whatever that experience is. And I think that's where we kind of underestimate the power of the human, which is if we're able to immerse ourselves in an experience that's so real. And by the way, I believe it's glassless technology as well. We can have the third dimensions of experience happen without glass technology potentially, because it's going to be configured differently. It could be camera setups. There are other ways that we could immerse it. I think if you can get away from it, then it becomes entertainment and potentially fun.
I hope it is decentralized, because I don't want a Mark Zuckerberg to control that world.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree.
But you know, there's a $1 trillion company, almost $1 trillion company, that is literally rebranding themselves to say they want to. And I get concerned, and that's why I think the decentralized world is exciting for this, because if it's controlled by a Microsoft, a Google, or an Apple, or whatever, then it gets kind of concerning for me at least.
Yeah, brother, if you think about it though, you talk about that almost $1 trillion business, a lot of the cool and innovation of that organization was acquired, not incubated. It gets to a certain point where companies are so bloated, they can't get that innovation. So young, punchy innovation gets brought in to a platform that allows that to be adopted. I'm cool with that. I can sleep with that at night, I can reconcile with that. There's no innovation coming out of that pit that makes it feel like it's going to be the thing that drives it in my mind. So I'm okay for it to be the investor of interesting if it has a platform for good, which it hasn't today. Okay. I also think that brands are the new Medicis. And what I mean by that is they're the ones who are investing in culture in a way that helps it be in a mass display, as opposed to museums, for example.
I hear what you said, but I saw how she cringed when I said Facebook. You went, you had a visceral feeling to that.
Yeah.
You don't want that, do you?
No.
Why?
Well, I just feel like they've shown time and time again that they can't be trusted with data. And I think privacy, as we immerse ourselves more into this digital landscape, is going to be a real concern. So I think the decentralization is obviously the way we want to go. But these companies have a lot of power. And they don't just have, oligarchy, business, corporate power. They have political power. They really do. And so I get concerned by that for sure.
Can I ask a question of the audience?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you're concerned about your data, please. Oh, I've got about half a dozen crocodile hands. Let's say that's 50%. And just do the other side. Raise your hand if you don't care about it. Couldn't give a rat's ass about data. Fascinating, isn't it?
Well, I'm fascinated by the ones that didn't raise their hand at all.
Okay, but let's call them in the middle on that. 50-50. It's amazing.
Do you care?
Yeah, of course I do. And I also, fundamentally, I don't think most people care about it if they feel like that if the data is collected and it's giving you an experience that's far more richer and of value to you, then you're going to give that data, you're going to give more and more data, which is kind of what's happened. Data's been gamified without anybody knowing. So I'm in your court on saying, oh, it's an alarm. But even when scandals happen, you know, like the Analytica scandal, it didn't change behaviors of young audiences. They don't care. Why? Part of it is the type of data they're leaving behind isn't that interesting. But when we talk about the crypto space and you're talking about, you know, wealth management, oh yeah, you better sit up and pay attention because...
I get it, but David, you unfortunately, there's not other options.
True that.
So if you do care, go, oh my gosh, oh, where do you go then? Right? I don't want to be on Instagram anymore. Where do you go?
Yeah, exactly.
And you go to TikTok, it's just as bad.
Right,
so no, but I have a challenge. I run a very large group, and in that group, we used WhatsApp, and all of a sudden there was that data issue. We go, all right, we got to get off of WhatsApp, and then we started looking at all the other platforms. They have similar data issues.
Yeah.
So there really isn't alternatives yet, and I guess I'm waiting, and that's why I'm concerned on who really runs the metaverse in the future.
I think the issue with that, though, ultimately is, although you'll participate, you'll limit the type of participation, which also, so if that's happening over here, and you're kind of limiting your experiences to make sure that you're mitigating your data issues, over here, in gaming, for example, those immersive experiences, it's all expression of, you overcompensate here, because over here you're guarded in many respects to try and make sure you don't, you know, that doesn't become foul play. And so you're able to go over here and really express. So I think that's why you'll see more talk around, quote unquote, the metaverse as being a large investment. I mean, Facebook are talking about $40 billion. Sorry, Meta are talking about $40 billion. That's a...
You don't call Google Alphabet.
No.
Right? It's still Google, right?
It is Google.
But look who's bigger than that. You have so many other meta platforms that have been out for a long time that are actually doing things in this space. I mean, even NVIDIA is doing more in this space, you know, but we don't talk about that. Facebook's getting all the news. I actually think there's a reason why Facebook changed their names, because I think there's a lot of
absolutely
sneaky stuff going on, as you know, through the people you work with. It's kind of scary on the data breaches that have happened.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. I mean, I just finished a production making virtual reality and kind of immersive art with Brittany Kaiser, the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower. So she came to my studio in Helsinki. We were trying to figure out, because I'm presuming everyone in the audience, if you were bleeding out money from your wallet every single day, and there was someone who, let's say, was very, very abusive towards you, not having your best interest at heart at all. And that's kind of the situation with if data is the most valuable asset in the world, it's the new oil, and those people who raise their hands saying, like, I don't really care about it, it means that you don't really care that you're bleeding out your most valuable asset, kind of like throwing money at non-existent strippers every single day without even knowing it. And then you know, there's someone whispering in your ear constantly saying, like, you should go and buy this thing that you don't need, like in unimaginable ways of how they can manipulate your whole reality at this moment in time. And once that, we're trying to make that into an artistic expression or something so that it becomes clear that this is what's happening. And then all of a sudden you'll find yourself being quite interested of your data and what's going on with it, because you know,
you give me massive anxiety. You just gave me a massive anxiety attack.
Sorry, bro.
Futurist, crypto, artist. I really think, if anything, the metaverse is made for you first. Art,
yeah,
music, lifestyle. I think you're the first to say, I give my seal of approval when it's ready, because it does make me feel like I'm part of it. So when artists jump on and say, yeah, it feels right, then I think we're heading in the right direction. I haven't heard that yet, because it doesn't exist. But I think artists are the ones that really need to grade this. Not technologists, not futurists, right?
Yeah, but artists are the ones who create culture.
That's it.
And the fast follow there is, if the fast follow from culture is, that's where it starts to get really messy, right? Because everyone comes in, tries to invest in it, so that looks awesome, let me buy into that thing, and it becomes less culturally cool, and it's got to go to the other fringes.
You know, I just thought of something that would be a great idea for the metaverse that I would love about it, is being able to put on a headset and immerse myself in my favorite show. Like, I'm going to be a total girl right now. Emily in Paris is coming back for season 2, Netflix. I would love to just put something on and immerse myself in that world and watch it in that way.
Put me in Golden Girls. That's where it's at, right? I want to be with Maud Adams, hang out with her. Hey, let's do this. Let's go 10 years in the future. There's something there that's called the metaverse. Give me a few seconds of what that metaverse looks like 10 years in the future. Try it out.
Oh gosh, something totally unrecognizable. Kids in headsets in classrooms and us transacting with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I guess the headsets aren't going to be a problem with all the stuff that Elon Musk and a few others are building with the chips in our heads and whatever. So it's literally the Matrix. It really is like some parts of it are going to be hell and some are going to be amazing. It depends on the kinds of places that are subconscious and what we consciously generate of where we want to be. It's just a tool, and then it'll become the image of those who are generating and creating it.
There you go.
Yeah, it isn't limited today to the visual cortex. It's going to be multi-sensory, which also means we're not going to become just blobs. It's a full immersive experience, and it's not headset-driven in my mind. There are many types of architecture to what that's going to be, and a lot of them are going to be how the brain interprets that reaction, which is it a memory? Is it a voice? Is it visual? There are many different ways it's going to be expressed, but not in 10 years. Between now and 10 years, we'll still be dicking around with hardware.
There you go. Natalie, Vesa, and David. I love your visions. It didn't seem like it was all that fun in the future, right?
Conversation. You kidding? There's no fun in this thing.
Let's redo this. And that's it. We're looking at where the metaverse is going. All I know is wait for Rev 2 and Rev 3. Rev 1, that right there, would literally be the beta test. I appreciate spending time here. Thank you for joining us. Blockchain world, pretty amazing here in Abu Dhabi. Thank you very much.